There we go. Hey, folks, man, this is Monk, and we are back with another episode of Classes of Cinematics, and we are continuing our Halloween retrospective with a look at Stephen King films adapted from Stephen King's works, man. And I'm joined on this episode. We've got Marcus over here hanging out with us, man. He's going to be kicking it with me as we talk about this film, Graveyard Shift. And it's kind of interesting, man. I met Marcus years ago in this area. We're both Raiders fans, man. You know, Raider Nation. And I actually tattooed you, and then you ended up moving to the West Coast and getting into special effects and makeup work, you know, in Hollywood, man. So that's pretty crazy, man. I think that's cool that you ended up, you know, working in that, because I think this film is probably a testament, you know, to your skill set now, you know. So maybe you could give us some insight into, you know, how this film, or how you think you know, things were put together in this film. But yeah, let's get into this Graveyard Shift, man. So Graveyard Shift came out in 1990. It's directed by Ralph S. Singleton. And the story goes this. John Hall is a drifter who wanders into a small town in Maine. He needs a job and decides to seek employment at the community's top business, a large textile mill. He is hired to work the graveyard shift from around midnight to dawn. And along with a few others, he is charged with cleaning out the basement. This task strikes the workers as simple enough, but then as they proceed deeper underground, they encounter an unspeakable monstrosity intent on devouring them all. And let's get into this cast real quick. So we've got Kelly Wolf, who plays in this. We got Stephen Matched, David Andrews. I think that's Alana Margolis, Brad Dourif, Andrew Devoff, Vic Pelozos, Robert Allen Booth, Jimmy Woodward, Jonathan Emerson, Richard French, Sharon Bailey, Gary Wisner, and I guess that's about it, man. There's a bunch of other characters.
Right. All I heard basically was Brad Dourif and a bunch of character actors. That's not a diss to anybody, but it's the cast doesn't really pop out. It's definitely people you've seen from movies in the 80s and 90s. A lot of, like I said, character actors. But yeah.
The one that stood out to me while I was watching it was Vic Pelozos. If people might remember, if you've ever seen Harlem Nights, he was the guy that they sent the girl to, the Sunshine Girl. He left his whole family for this woman. You know what I'm saying? So
it's actually, it's funny that you bring up Harlem Nights. I was going to... going back to Ralph Singleton, the director, I think he only has like 2 credits under his film as far as directing. Graveyard Shift is one of them. The other one is, I don't know, some TV show, but he has quite a few movies as a producer credit, and Harlem Nights is one of them. Clear and Present Danger, the Tom Clancy, the Harrison Ford movie. He produced both Pet Sematary films, another 48 Hours, that's 48 Hours Part 2, and Juana Man.
What do you like about this film?
Well, let's see. Going back to the protagonist, the drifter, John, he's pretty much the audience perspective. This guy has no personality. He's a carbon copy of pretty much like the Don Johnson kind of prototype actor around that time. Is his first position as the Graveyard Shift? I don't remember, but
I think so. Yeah, cause, I mean that's okay. It. He comes to the town. He gets you know, he gets recruited to pull this job off that they need to have done. You know,
right?
Essentially, they're trying to clear out this building because it's about to be converted or sold to someone else. It's going to be converted into maybe some stores or shopping center or something, but there's also a rat problem going on in this town, man, which I think, you know, and that's part of it too, is like, you know, they're hoping to get these debris out of there, and you got to deal with the rats that are in there that are a constant problem.
So the Graveyard Shift, the actual position, I don't know, maybe this is just like the military in me, but I feel like there should be like 3 people minimum doing that job, because it's just like if one guy gets seriously injured in that thing, you're screwed. You know, there's nobody to report to, nobody that can seek help. So yeah, that was just something I jotted down. It was just like there should be at least 3 people minimum working.
There's a few people on this crew, like if you remember, but you know what it is though? It seems like this guy was just you know, they're cheap labor. You know,
right. So okay, so
it's like
we'll get into Mr. Warwick, the antagonist, but I kind of want to go back to the actual factory itself. There were a couple shots that were really reminiscent of Psycho, as far as the structure of the actual building, kind of like that boxy rectangular, the wooden planks.
Yeah,
how it's just tall or high up, and then kind of like the Dutch angle of how they film it. That really popped out to me.
It feels like a factory, man, because like the film opens up, we see an accident at a mill, pretty much, you know, and this
right.
It seems like it looks like a processing. They're making fabric or thread out of cotton, and there's these rats all around, so we see
it looks like a haunted mansion castle. Like, I'm also putting down, that place should just be condemned, like straight out. It should just be like leveled. There's a fucking flooded cemetery like right outside the building.
It's an old place, man. It's definitely old and grimy and
right, but
it has a lot of character in that regard.
You pointed out in the beginning the set design. As much as I say it's a shithole, that's only a
description.
That's only praise for the set design, because it's so disgusting and so immersive. You know what I mean? So I think they knocked it out the park with designing all that. But
yeah, I definitely love that aspect. They killed it. But yeah, like I said, man, there's a big rat infestation. The first guy, he's kind of talking to these rats, and something happens, man. We don't see what happens, but you know, his boss comes and chews him out, and you know, I forgot. I think he was there by himself. My bad. And then all of a sudden, you know, he's being friendly with these rats. It's like they're keeping him company during his graveyard shift. But then all of a sudden, something shows up and pushes him into the machinery. He gets by the machine. So you know, that's essentially how it starts. And then we meet our guy John, comes into town looking for work and stuff.
With the rats and how they behave, you almost think it's going to be like a food of the gods situation before you find out there's like a monster. You know what I mean? It's just like the swarm of rats, kind of like Willard. Maybe there's somebody controlling the rats and shit.
That's interesting. I think that's what I was expecting as the opening thing of this was unfolding, that those individual rats were going to be the problem, and they were just regular rats stuff. You know,
right.
You know, once the thing unfolds, but I do like that aspect of it, man. Like I said, everything looks like real locations, like lived in. You know, like it's been there for a while. Like it definitely gives a great aesthetic to this thing. But one thing that I like too is I love like this film. I don't think is that great plot wise, but it has parts that stand out. I think this thing for me stands out with the effects, the atmosphere, and those kind of things. But I do love the fact that we get this crazy Vietnam rat catcher dude. And it's always a bonus when you throw any Vietnam reference in a film like this. Just like in Dust Till Dawn, you know, Fred Williams.
You know, that didn't even come to mind. Obviously, the Jaws Indianapolis speech came up. Yeah, but Brad Dourif and the actor who plays Mr. Warwick, those guys are definitely the standouts of the film. They chew up like just every scene they're in. I feel like they understood the assignment, man, because they just took this opportunity to just be as outrageous as they wanted to be. And I think if everyone would have leaned into that, I think this probably would have had a much better moment-to-moment acting and you know, and character development, you know? Brad Dourif, 1990, this is like prime Brad Dourif. Like, I looked up his filmography that same year, and I didn't even want to waste my time writing everything down, but stuff he had that same year was Graveyard Shift, Exorcist 3, undoubtedly the best sequel, Child's Play 2, and I believe it's probably an anthology horror film called Grim Prairie Tales. This guy has the entire town, it seems, under his thumb. Like, this guy is just raising terror on everybody, and
he including, you know, taking liberties with the women employees and
bro, he's a mess, dude. He's a mess. He assaults males and he sexually assaults females, and nobody does anything. Like, he literally like almost like, well, he assaults that woman in front of that group of people, and nobody does anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's crazy, man. It's crazy, but I do like my man's Vietnam guy. I do like his little brief moment of dealing with these rats, man. Because one aspect of it I thought was interesting was he was describing, torture methods with these that they would use these rats for, which showed up later in Fast and Furious Part 2 when he described how they would put the rat in a container over someone's body.
Right.
And heat up the container, and then the rat has nowhere to go but to dig in, and they would just start digging into these people as a torture, device. So it's just kind of cool to see that, explained and then show up in later films. But then he's also speaking on the intelligence of the rats. He's like, I've tried everything and I can't get rid of them. They have no fear of me. They're not scared of the traps. They piss on the bait to warn the other rats what's going on, and that's kind of cool. It adds to atmosphere, and it also aids in helping you think that it's solely a rat problem.
Right.
I thought that was cool, man. I definitely appreciated that.
Did you ever get Alien vibes, like of, especially with the kills? Like one kill specifically with the guy that gets wrapped with the wings. But I mean, it's set up. Oh my God, I'm forgetting the guy's name from the original Alien, but it's the one where he's looking for the cat, and then there's the chain.
The one that was looking for Jones.
Yeah, it was almost it's almost the same scene. So I really think that was inspiration for this, or another thing they pretty much just ripped off.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that was Kane that was looking, or I forgot the characters' names.
Right.
All of them. No, that was Brett. That was definitely Brett, played by Harry Dean Stanton.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the one where he came from. Yeah, like you said, he came from above, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a lot that's new under the sun, So I could definitely see that, man. Yeah, that was definitely an interesting thing, man. Because like I said, man, I think this might be one of the few films where we never really see the creature in its entirety. Usually they pay off with the big reveal. I don't know if it was a budgetary thing or just a creative decision. But
it was budgetary. It's always budgetary, and I'm kind of glad, man, that they didn't really show the whole thing. Yeah, it was just, I don't know. It kind of looked goofy.
I kind of liked it though. I mean, I don't know. I think the wings were a bit extra, but if it was more still staying in that whole giant rat-like vein, then it probably would have hit better. But I was still curious, man. Because this thing,
right.
Like clearly the rats themselves, as big as a problem they were a scapegoat for this bigger thing, and I think that's why that thing was able to thrive so long, because everyone is thinking it's the rats, man. Because there's that one scene where Sunshine Man is spraying the hose, and you see this big ass tail, and I'm like, yo, but he's just bugging out, killing these rats. That's the problem I had with some of the script stuff. Like, come on, man, if you saw that, you're just gonna be like, he's spraying this hose like Mac from Predator.
At its core, it's a creature feature film.
Definitely, it's one of my favorite genres, man. In the genre.
I think because of the poor writing and kind of like the poorish plot and storyline and all that, that kind of, I think, holds it back from being a full-on cult movie. I think so. I think this movie's always destined to get swept under the rug. And then even the creators themselves never really acknowledged the movie.
For me, like you're saying, I think even Steve King is on record saying this is one of his least favorite adaptations. But for me, it's I feel like if you turn this movie on for the last 30 minutes and it was like an episode of a Twilight Zone kind of type series, then it'd be fine. But trying to stretch this out in the 90 minutes, and it's there. Honestly, the premise is there, man. I was thinking this as I watched it. I was like, this will be right for a remake, man. All you gotta do really is keep the end how that plays out, but then just make the character things better. write it, punch it up a little bit, man, because I think that's where it's suffering from the most. It's just not interesting up until that final sequence, man. You know, other than the intro, which I thought was cool, but then the rest is just falls flat. And then you got a really short ending sequence, which is probably about the last 15, 16 minutes of the film. But you've got to sit through a lot of just uninteresting,
you hit the nail on the head with it. It should be probably like a short story in an anthology film, which it actually is.
Yeah. But it takes longer than 30 minutes to an hour and a half to read that.
So actually, I'll go into that. So originally, this came from a book called Night Shift. It was published in 1978. Again, it's a short story collection. Amongst the stories are Children of the Corn, Cat's Eye, Maximum Overdrive, Graveyard Shift, Mangler, Sometimes They Come Back, and Lawnmower Man. The book came out a little after Carrie. Based off that success of Carrie, a lot of these stories were turned into film licenses. Yeah, so
they were just snatching like anything that was putting out. They were going back to get that.
This book specifically, a lot of TV deals came from this. A lot of movie deals came from this. He even had for some of the short stories, he had a program for student filmmakers called the Dollar Deal, where he would literally sell the film rights for $1 to student filmmakers. One of them was The Lawnmower Man. Make of that what you will, but that was one of the films that came out of the Dollar Deal adaptations. But again, this book was pretty much like the launch pad for a lot of the 80s and 90s film licenses that came out of it.
Like, there are things that haven't been adapted yet, but rights have been sold 2 years ago. They just haven't successfully got them launched off the ground. But even recently, man, we've seen stuff like Gerald's Game getting adapted, and I think he just made a crazy deal for his latest book. That's already been sold, the rights to, I think he had a book that came out within the last couple months, and he's already sold the rights to that, man. So people are so hungry.
Just think about like the consistency of Stephen King's career going from the early 80s till now, dude, just with the books and the film adaptations and the film adaptations of the film adaptations. And God damn, I mean, he owned the 80s, he owned the 90s, and I mean, this dude can survive off film adaptations alone, off his short stories.
Outside of his already crazy book work, man, this guy's, I'm not even sure. Do you know what the count is on how many novels?
No.
So I'm looking at the wiki. They're saying he's got 65 novels.
Right, and
including 7 under the name Richard Bachman, his pseudonym.
Right. And growing up in the 90s, I never really dabbled with the books, but there was just no escaping the films,
I did read some of the books, when I was in high school and started getting into some of these films. And then it's how I accidentally realized that Shawshank Redemption was a Stephen King story. And I'm reading the book. This is at the time when Shawshank was on TV all the time, like every other weekend. And I'm reading the story, and I'm like, this sounds like Shawshank. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, Redemption, that's Shawshank. This is the, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so I'm curious. Maybe this will be one that I will go back and visit and look at this, the Night Shift anthology, and see what, differences or what, why. Because there's a reason this got made. It didn't get made based on the strength of the script that eventually got filmed. It got made because they thought it was something good in Stephen King's original story, So
right. And then I'm sure like the FX team had a lot of say in the making of this film, because it's just they show a lot of the gore off, a lot of the effects. So
yeah, that's where the money went, because it didn't go to the acting and the rest of the movie.
Right. I mean, you can say that for a lot of movies, honestly.
Yeah, they got this fake Burt Ward playing Warnick. That's who that. Not Burt Ward. What's his name? Fred Ward. That's who.
I've jotted that down. And then
they look like lower versions of better actors.
Okay, so I definitely made note of that. And then so there's the other guy, the only black guy in that works in the graveyard shift. He looks like Knowles from The Thing. the cook, I think.
Yeah. Talking about what's the name's role? TK Carter's role. But it's funny because he's not credited on the wiki. Because like when I did the intro, I definitely was looking for his face, but they didn't credit him on the wiki listing of the cast. Like that's kind of whoever edits wiki, y'all got to put my man on graveyard shift.
Yeah, I did. I noticed that too. One of the guys is the Wishmaster as well.
Mm-hmm.
I just like I recognized his face and then I just jotted it down. I forget his name as the actor, but he's definitely the Wishmaster, the Djinn or whatever it's called. This movie kind of like taps into my like workers' rights sensibilities. I mean, this guy, he runs it like a dictatorship. I don't know if this was a nod to anything, but his car, the Cadillac, the Coupe de Ville, it reminded me a lot of the Batmobile. I don't know if that was like a wink at anything, just the tail end, that pointy kind of tail end of it.
Yeah, it could have been a nod to Christine. Like, who knows? Because that was kind of like those fins. It definitely was
right.
But also, I do want to put out, man. I just noticed Richard France on this as well. And if you remember, he was the guy with the patch on his eye in Dawn of the Dead when they had those scenes where the people were debating, like those news clips, debating the dead rising phenomenon.
Right.
So that's crazy, man. Yeah, this is crazy though. When you see, these films and how they're made, a lot of people will reuse people that they work with, or you'll see a lot of overlap. Especially when it comes to like these effects driven, films. You'll see a lot of overlap with the cast and crew and stuff like that.
And it really, just having worked in the industry, it basically all comes down to efficiency and just time. You don't have to worry about. There's already an established trust with these people, so at this point I completely understand it. So yeah, I mean this is how it's done pretty much.
Yeah. It's like if you find a good crew and you're done with a film, you got one starting again, and you're going to get them again.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool because, like you said, establish a workflow, establish trust, and and I think it allows the FX team actually get better, since they're used to working with versus having to switch over to a new director, his working style and a new workflow, and you just kind of just keep going and doing, what's what. I think that's how Tom Savini and other people, Baker, Dave Baker, they just get better because they're working with, the people and they're, they just keep going,
A lot, sometimes that can be a bad thing. It can be just an echo chamber of bad ideas, and then it goes from film to film to film. And I think
he had one or two I really liked, but then there's just a bunch of like, I guess.
I mean, he has clout, man. He has clout, and and a lot of it's from his music career.
Yeah,
which is,
but also I think the thing is too with him, he has had some commercial hits as well. Like critics might pan a lot of the work, but if the people are showing up to see it, then what are you going to say? Like, it's,
right.
So it's like, definitely. And then, I think that also helped him having that built-in music fan base that were coming to check out a lot of his early stuff,
right.
So bringing that to the table. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much my point. Is that like, he's riding off his cloud. I think pretty much riding off his cloud, and I don't know. Did you see the Monsters film?
Nah, I refuse. I did not want to do it.
I admittedly I made it through about 45 minutes, and I kind of just turned it off. But I don't know, man. I mean, is it going to get to a point where people aren't going to give him money anymore? I don't know.
I think that could happen, but who knows, man? Because probably like that. And with the way that it was released, it was going to a streaming platform, so maybe it was worth it to put for them to put
and
on.
He's a creator. He's never going to stop creating. So So no,
I didn't really spend a lot of money on it. From what I understand, it's not a really deep ball where
it's definitely that's not the last we've seen of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's crazy, man. But anything you want to say, man, in conclusion about Graveyard Shift?
Yeah. Again, I would recommend this to marathon. To throw this in the background. If you want to see a scene of blood and gore every now and then, include it into your marathon. But other than that, I remember this film out of pure nostalgia, and it was one of those experiences where I liked it a lot more as a kid, and now through my adult eyes, as we've already gone through. There's a lot of things that held it back, but out of five points or stars, whatever, I definitely want to say like a 2.75. Like, if I say a 3, I don't even know if I can say
it. Generous, man, with a 3.
yeah. I mean, saying a 3 is like how I passed high school, just like through the skin of my teeth. So I don't know. I'd be more comfortable giving it that, but I would. Man, I mean, his 90s movies are so bizarre. Just have fun with it and just make a grab bag. And if this pops up as one of them, then watch it for sure.
Yeah, it's probably about a 2 for me, man. I'm not mad for watching it, but that is the thing, man. I feel like definitely if I was younger, I could see something like this coming on when I turn on HBO, and I'll sit through it and be like, oh, this is, But older eyes, and that's the one thing that why we do this show, man, because these are classics. So we're re-examining them with our eyes now, compared to how they were when we, first watched them. And some of them are first watches for me, just
for sure.
This one is, but I can also see why it would probably be something that would pass, and be entertaining back then, So
I was gonna say, if you want to see again, Brad Pitt, Brad Dourif in his prime, not as Chucky in his human form. I would definitely recommend it for that reason alone. Every scene that he's in,
he's good.
Yeah, and just. His voice, he has just an amazing voice. And when he speaks with anger and I close my eyes, I see Chucky, it's just.
Yeah, I definitely feel like he understood the assignment for this.
Yeah.
Film.
Him and for sure. So that, the character actors, the set design, it just kind of adds to that, that kind of icky kind of atmosphere. Put it on in the background, and if you have to step away from it. But Halloween marathon. Boom. There you go.
That's what we're doing for this month. Leaning to the horror, man. But I think that's it, folks, man. We're gonna wrap this up. It's been me, Monkey. You catch me at Monkey Blood on Twitter, Instagram. Follow us on Instagram at Classics of Cinematics. And also follow the Greater Network from the Canopy Network at FTCNet on Instagram, man. And if you want to tell the people how they can find you.
I want to say first off that this is definitely my first time doing a stream like this. I've definitely done Zoom meetings, so I want to do this again. I definitely want to.
Definitely have fun in the future, man.
Get the jitters out. I'll be a little more free flowing next time, a little more organic. But anyways, I would strongly recommend checking out my Instagram portfolio, my makeup portfolio, Marcus85 MUA. That's MARCUS 85 MUA as in makeup artist. You can find me there on Instagram, and that's pretty much it as far as social media. I've just I'm on Facebook, but I'm primarily using social media to kind of spread my brand. But that's pretty much it.
I just learned something. I didn't know what the MUA was for. That's makeup artist. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely
makes a lot of sense with a lot more other profiles that I see online.
Okay. That's definitely the acronym, and you'll see MUA FX, MUA H, which is hair, But yeah, I mean, I am a makeup artist. I do primarily character makeup, vampires, zombies, wartime westerns, that kind of thing, just like gritty makeup, injuries and such. My next project is coming up the first week of November, and it's going to be a Vietnam era film, and I'm pretty stoked for that. So if you follow my Instagram, look out for that. It's pretty much all I got going on right now. And again, I definitely like to join you for a future show.
Yeah, sure. We're going to make that happen, definitely, man. You know, thanks for coming out to hang out with us, man. But yeah, folks, we're out of here. We're going to catch you next time on Classes of Cinematics. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, man. And thanks for coming to hang out with us, Marcus, man.